Hi, it's time for Where Hollywood Hides. Here's Bob and Suzanne.
There's no business like show business. From actors, writers, directors, and behind-the-scenes crew, everyone loves being part of the biz. And everybody loves those Hollywood stories. My name is Bob McCullough. I'm married to Suzanne Herrera McCullough, and between the two of us, we've got over 200 hours writing, producing, directing, or acting in some of the most classic television series and movies of all time. We've had pretty high-profile careers working with a wide range of celebrity talent and helping beginners get their start in the business, so people have always told us we should write a book. Well, we think getting our story out this way could be a lot more fun, so let's jump in.
Chicken joke!
I'm Mrs. Cleaver.
From Television City in Hollywood.
Boy, the way Glenn Miller plays.
We can rebuild him. We have the technology.
Nanu. Baby, you're the great.
Here comes the judge.
More cowbell.
Not special.
There's anything wrong with that.
And now for something completely different.
There's no business like show
Welcome to Where Hollywood Hides, episode 18. My name is Bob McCullough,
And this is Suzanne Herrera McCullough.
and today we're talking about
Zorro. Not the movie, but the TV show.
the new Zorro,
The new Zorro.
which was done by New World Productions in Spain. We touched upon it in podcast episode 4, and today we're going to drill down a little bit and share some of our memories about working in Spain and being involved with some really terrific actors.
Speaking about actors, I thought I would give a shout out to Betty White. She is turning 91 this month.
Go Betty!
Isn't that great? And she's still working.
Amazing.
We're like babies next to her.
Absolutely. We have a ways to go.
She's had an amazing career, so happy birthday, Betty White.
She's kind of like a female George Burns, if you think about it. He never stopped working either.
And they were both, well, he was extremely sharp, and so is she.
Yeah.
She also is a big advocate of animal rights, so she's...
So pet your dog and you'll live to be 91.
Speaking about animal rights,
Yes.
I wasn't going to bring this up because this is not a political show, but did you see the movie Blackfish?
Yes, the documentary. Flicks.
But you saw it because I told you about
Right,
it, right?
right.
Well, all I have to say, without getting into the whole PETA thing, is I will never, ever, ever go to SeaWorld, nor will I take my grandkids there. It's a movie that is a must-see, and after you see it, if you still wish to go to SeaWorld, I have nothing to say about that. It's your choice, but you must see the...
No, it's brutal.
Yeah. Anyway.
It's brutal.
So
wild
on.
animals caged up is not a good thing.
Anyway, I enjoyed that movie, even though it was pretty devastating. It was something good to share with the family. Makes me feel sorry for the goldfish I once had entrapped.
The goldfish that we've killed.
There were actually many.
We went through 17 goldfish in 2 weeks, I think.
That is the truth. I cannot keep a goldfish alive. If it kills me, I just can't.
Well, we won't have you working at SeaWorld then. Right.
No, we won't.
Right.
No, we won't. Anyway, we just came off of a great holiday. Christmas was great. We had a wonderful time with friends and family. And New Year's was very exciting. Can't go into the details. And I know you are chomping at the bit to take the lights down.
Are we going to have the lights up at Easter?
I just like them up for another week or two.
All right.
And it's the year 2014 now.
Right, so we're moving ahead.
Yes, we'll have a lot of things to look forward to. The Academy Awards is literally around the corner. And also the Santa Barbara Film Festival is just a few weeks away.
Right, around the corner. We'll really get into that.
They're going to be having some pretty incredible celebrities coming to Santa Barbara in the next month. So we'll be talking about that as well.
Hey, are you looking for something? Hate driving down to the mall to see if they even have it in stock. Amazon.com has whatever you need. School supplies, clothing, shoes, toys, video games, DVDs of the shows we've worked on. I could go on forever, but you get the idea. Go to our website at morehollywoodhides.com and you'll be supporting the podcast, so give it a shot. Amazon services from selections to deliveries to returns. It's really beyond belief.
So let's get to Zorro.
So podcast, the episode 17, we wrapped up my adventures with Star Trek The Next Generation. And it was immediately thereafter, I got a call from one of the agents at CAA, Glenn Bickle, who was actually one of the good guys and is still very active in the business. He called me and said, how would you like to go to Spain? And I said, well, what's going on in Spain? And he kind of laid it out for me. They were bringing back Zorro as a television series, a half-hour show on the Family Channel. And I went over and I met with Goodman and Barry Rosen, the guys from Goodman Rosen Productions. They'd done a number of television movies and some series. They were well known for doing Quarterback Princess, and two very active guys who had just lots of experience, and they had sold the concept of bringing Zorro back. And they turned around and made a deal with some overseas investors, one being Ellipse Program, Canal Plus, and Beta TV in Germany. And that's where all the production financing came from for the show. What they had was 10 episodes already in the can of a thing called The New Zorro, and that starred a guy named Patrick James as Zorro, and they showed me that pilot, and I kind of shrugged, and I said, gosh, I'm not sure the American audience is going to buy into this guy, and I apparently said the right thing because I got hired. They said exactly what we're thinking. We need to find the right guy, and that's when the casting process began. At New World, there was a casting agent of some reputation by the name of Barbara Clayman, and we sat down with her and discussed what the new Zorro character, the actor, had to be like.
So who did you interview? Do you know, were there any big names? Or?
Well, we probably saw everybody who was over 5'7" in Hollywood in about a 3-week period.
Was this a low-budget film?
No, it wasn't low budget, but it wasn't a big network show, so there were certain financial limitations.
And this was cable, correct?
Well, yeah, Family Channel was a cable show. So we saw all these actors, one after another, but the very first guy that walked in was this kind of striking guy, 6'4.5", very athletic build, very soft-spoken, but with a kind of an intense intellectual character to him. And I said, that's the guy. And they said, well, he's the first guy we've seen. We can't make a decision like that. We spent the next 3 weeks seeing everybody you've ever heard of on television. I think we even saw Mark Harmon at one time.
Mark Harmon
right,
as Zorro?
Right. Well, this is before CSI, and as I said, they were seeing anybody who would come in and talk about the part or read for it. And at the end of the three-week period, they said, well, who was that very first guy?
Let me ask you kind of an obvious question.
Sure.
Me being of Latina race.
Yes, you are.
Did you ever think about hiring an Hispanic to play an Hispanic?
That wasn't one of the major factors, to tell you the truth. There wasn't a lot of talk about. First of all, the whole Latino audience, it wasn't nearly as significant as it is today. It was just beginning.
I would think it wouldn't be for the Latino audiences. It would be because Don Diego is of Hispanic origin.
Right. Well, I know.
So why not?
I know we saw the guys who had been in La Bamba. And I know we saw Richard Iniguez, who's a very good actor, handsome guy, but just didn't have the character of Zorro is really two people. It's Don Diego, who's this rather effete, intellectual
Hispanic
science guy, and then Zorro, who's a swashbuckling sword fighter.
Hispanic sword fighter.
I get that.
I'm just giving you a hard time, but
we saw.
You understand my point, though.
Yeah, for sure.
Like you can't find good looking. Oh, I know you wanted him tall.
Well, it wasn't tall so much as just a good actor who could play both characters.
So now you're generalizing and saying there are no good Hispanic actors. I'm kidding.
That's not
kidding.
true.
Okay,
that's not
so
true.
Move on. I'm teasing.
So the name I pulled out of my pocket, I said, guys, this is the name I wrote down on the first day. And I pulled it out of my pocket, and the name was Duncan Regehr. And that's who wound up getting the call. And Duncan is a remarkable actor.
Yes, he is. I agree.
He had his big claim to fame was he had played Errol Flynn in My Wicked, Wicked Ways. He'd also been in a thing called Wizards and Warriors for CBS and some TV movies, The Blue and the Gray. He'd been in a small feature called The Monster Squad, in which he played Dracula. And that was reputed to have been in the audience and fan base. Even today, still talks about his Dracula as being the best Dracula ever in cinema. I didn't get a chance to see that at the time. But Duncan's a Canadian, and that may have had something to do with his being cast because we were looking for all these financial credits from overseas.
I happen to agree. Duncan did a great job.
He felt like the guy. I mean, there was just no real difference between him and the character, in my opinion. You know, he had been an Olympic boxing contender at one time. He'd been a championship figure skater, and he had a very artistic sensibility. Today, he's an internationally renowned painter. So his creative instincts became part of that character, and as it turns out, when we actually shot the show, finally got under production, he was probably, to me at least, one of the most helpful actors I've ever worked with.
So let's talk briefly before you get into the details of the show.
Sure.
The kids and I came with you.
Well, we did.
To Spain.
Right.
We decided it was in the summertime of 1990.
Right.
Very hot in Madrid. Which
Spain is hot in the
everybody
summer.
leaves in Madrid and
Right,
goes to the beach.
We didn't know that.
And here we were filming in the desert.
Right. And they're all saying, oh, look, the Americans are in town, and we were the only people in restaurants.
But it was very educational, very fun. We got to see a lot of, the kids and I got to see a lot of art exhibits. The kids were little, and it was the first time they ever saw topless swimmers.
Oh, that's right, in the hotel pool.
Hotel pool, yes. They couldn't take their eyes off of...
Between the topless swimmers and the ice cream on the streets.
Yes.
They had really high-quality ice cream. I remember that.
It was fun.
But, at least I spent most of my time out on the ranch just outside of town where New World had built the most incredible set. If you remember, there was
on 36 acres or something.
Right,
like
and there was
that.
but they had built the entire village, Pueblo de Los Angeles, with a church and the alcalde's residence and haciendas, and the entire town set was there. We shot everything out there. They even built interiors within the sets, the standing sets outside, which is very unusual. In American sound stages, you'll see the flats of a Western street, for example, and you walk through the door and there's nothing there. Well, in Spain, they built the set right in the exterior building, so you'd walk through the door and you were inside the tavern. It was
It was a very cool set.
Remarkable job by that entire art department. One of the key elements of the series were the stunts and the sword fighting, and that was really all choreographed by a guy named Peter Diamond, who had been the fellow who did all the sword fight choreography for The Princess Bride and for for the Star Wars trilogy. All the Star Wars films with the laser swords, that was all designed by Peter Diamond, and he and Duncan Regehr worked very closely together to get Duncan up to speed so that he became literally a master fencer.
So let's talk about who was on the show, actor-wise.
Well, there was Duncan, of course, and there were two different alcaldes. One was Michael Tylo, who was an American actor, really good guy. You and I got very friendly with him. He was married to Hunter Tylo. The only problem with Michael is that he really was very much the personality of the alcalde, and he didn't like being in Spain very much because he had young children, and he was stuck in Spain for 3 or 4 months of the summer, and he wanted to be home with his kids. And he and Duncan really did lock horns quite a bit creatively.
Well, that was good for the characters.
It was great for the characters, but they weren't really acting. I mean, they literally didn't have a lot of regard for one another. So in season 3, I believe, Michael was replaced by a guy named John Hertzler, who was also blonde, like Michael was.
So after Duncan Regehr, what was the name of that young man who couldn't talk?
Oh, yes, a young Spanish actor named Juan Diego Boto.
He was great.
He's still acting, by the way. Of course, now he's like in his 40s.
Now, I forgot. He can talk, right?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
No, he's a
he was so convincing.
No, he's a well-regarded actor in Spain. Patrice Martinez played Victoria Escalante, kind of the love interest for Zorro, the Lois Lane, if you will.
Right.
Who fell very much in love with Zorro, but thought that Don Diego was a little bit of a
dork.
fop. Yeah, a complete dork. A really good guy who worked very hard, and he carried a lot of the show. The comedy relief was James Victor playing Sergeant Mendoza.
He was good.
He did a lot of his own stunts, did a lot of pratfalls, and was kind of the butt of everybody's joke. And of course, we had two different guys playing Don Alejandro. It started with Ephraim Zimbalist Jr., if you recall, from 77 Sunset Strip. He was cast as Duncan Regehr's father.
Right.
Replaced ultimately by Henry Darrow, who is the only actor to have played in all 3 Zorro series.
Wow.
3 different series have been made with the Zorro character, and Henry Darrow played Zorro at one time. And
there you go.
Right.
That's an obvious choice.
Yeah, and he played Don Alejandro twice. He was terrific, a really great sense of humor, kind of stalwart. You know, this was a difficult shoot because in the summer in Madrid, it was literally, I don't think I'm exaggerating, it was 105 degrees most days.
And very dusty.
It was dusty and it was hot. It was the kind of hot where you open the car door and it feels like a wall of heat has just hit you. Like if you open your oven at home at full blast, that's what it felt like as soon as you get out of the car. And these guys were all walking around in basically tux and tails all day, very formal.
And how how about the extras? They were in long sleeve peasant outfits.
That's true. That's true.
And sombreros.
Well, let's think about
hats.
Duncan Regehr wearing Zorro's outfit: a black hat and a black cape, black pants,
and on a black horse,
riding a black horse. You talk about hot. Now, one of the remarkable things about Duncan is his physical condition. That's really what carried him through. He's the kind of guy that had beautiful lunch spreads, as you recall. You could have anything you wanted to eat, and Duncan would always have sliced cucumbers and tomatoes or something. Eat very, very sparsely and drink a lot of water, kept himself well hydrated. And that athleticism and that self-discipline really saw him through a lot of days, because doing the action work he did in that heat was quite remarkable.
So you directed a few episodes.
I directed about 6 episodes in Spain. I had a lot of help. Baron Ray Austin was there. He was one of our line producers who directed a lot of episodes.
I didn't get to see much of you in the 3 months that we were there.
No, because I report to the set at dawn, basically, and we're done at dusk. And I would come back, and there'd be script meetings and rewrites I had to do, and then I would collapse into bed.
Right.
I wasn't a lot of fun 5 days of the week.
Oh, but that's okay. The kids and I had a great time. I was always hoping for that acting role that would be thrown at me.
Well, you were kind of busy. You had 2 young boys to take care of in a foreign country.
I'm an Hispanic.
Well,
I was a natural.
But you did write a great script called A Deal with the Devil.
Right.
And that became one of the there's a lot of fans out there for the new Zorro. I still get fan mail. I get emails and all kinds of stuff from people. But they talk about Colonel Palomares, that character you created, who is this ruthless, vindictive guy. And how you came up with that, it kind of scares me. How you could write something so potentially violent. He was trying to hang everybody in town, if you remember. He was played by the actor Jim Carter, an English guy who since has become very prominent on Downton Abbey, and he's been on the Colbert Report. He played in Alice in Wonderland.
Well, I wasn't involved in the casting, so I don't quite remember who you cast for all that. But I do remember enjoying writing the scripts.
Well, the crazy thing is, of all the series I've worked on, that was probably the least problematic in terms of story, writing, and production, because Goodman and Rosen really did create a very well-oiled machine. They had Ray Austin in Spain the entire time, making sure that things ran well from a production standpoint, just kind of the nuts and bolts of it all, and making sure we stayed on schedule. We shot shows back-to-back. We really blocked show productions. We would shoot 6 shows at a time, do all the scenes in the tavern for all 6 shows in one day.
Right.
That sort of thing.
Very organized.
Very organized, really shot on a budget, which allowed the producers and myself to look for people who may have been a little bit more expensive as guest actors. And if you remember, they got just about everybody they invited to join us on the show. We had people like Andre the Giant, Doug McClure, Adam West, the original Batman, was on. Philip Michael Thomas from Miami Vice was on the show at the time. And we had Roddy Piper and Jesse Ventura, with whom I'd worked. And probably the one who's really had the biggest breakout career that appeared on the show was Daniel Craig, who is now the new James Bond.
That's right.
So they had a pick of anybody who was in Europe. They wanted anybody who was flying around or working in Europe because it saved us production dollars in terms of transportation. And it gave us the opportunity to work with some pretty dramatic actors.
You were very nice to cast all these people.
I sense a sense of, what's the word, resentment? That you were there and you weren't cast. What would you have done with the boys?
Oh, well, they were already on the set half the time.
That's true.
I'm just kidding. I always like to razz you about that. I was so busy, I didn't know. I couldn't see straight. Just to give the audience a sense of what kind of television shows were on in the 90s. Friends, Seinfeld, Cheers, ER, Full House, and the Fresh Prince from Bel-Air. So that's kind of what was going on in the 90s.
So there was nothing like Zorro.
Exactly. That was my point. There was nothing like Zorro, and I think the Family Channel was struggling to find a show that was not just family, but had a little edge to it.
Right. One of the things we had to do was create action without true violence. And
I remember that.
I'm very proud of
and
the fact.
And he couldn't kill anyone.
Well,
right?
That wasn't a rule per se.
Zorro couldn't kill anybody.
But I do want to mention Philip Taylor, who Gary Goodman discovered. He had done a movie with Tab Hunter called Lust in the Dust or Lust for Dust or something. And Philip is a Shakespearean-trained actor who had been doing some comedy writing, and he came to Goodman Rosen, and he didn't have nearly as much production and writing experience as I had, but he had a great sense of humor, and he had that European sensibility and certainly an erudition that helped the scripts out tremendously. And he and I literally became writing partners on the show. I was supervising producer and he was a story editor, but we did an awful lot of writing together. In fact, I wrote 37 scripts of the 88 myself, but with Philip, we wrote 56 scripts together.
Wow.
So he was just as high energy and prolific and creative as you can imagine. And I give a lot of credit to those scripts to Philip, who's now teaching screenwriting at University of Arizona or Arizona State and continues developing movies and things like that, and still a good friend. So the show was unusual in that they gave me complete control of the scripts, and it allowed us to write scripts on budget, on time, that engaged the character without going over the edge of the Family Channel restrictions with respect to violence. Yes, he could pull a sword out and he could sword fight. We actually never killed anybody. No characters were ever killed by Zorro.
It was a nice family show.
Nobody ever shot anybody. We never saw any blood. What we saw was a character who was bright enough and intelligent enough and strong enough to accomplish the task with kind of cleverness as opposed to sheer force. And I think Duncan had a lot to do with being able to pull that off, to convey the skill, the acumen, and the strength of character without just getting down and punching people in the face like so many action shows purvey.
So how about your directing? Did you enjoy directing?
I enjoyed it because there were scripts I'd written, and it was easy. I already knew what the storyline was. The hardest part for me, frankly, was the heat. If you remember, I was wearing straw hats and wet wash rags around my neck, and I just was not acclimated.
You were a Santa Barbara boy.
I said it right. So the heat was a difficult thing, and I was really kind of scared of the horse.
You never liked horses.
Well, they're big animals with little brains, and in spite of the fact that I believe we had 3 or 4 horses that were incredibly well trained, all playing Toronado, all with their own specific skill set.
Beautiful. Yeah.
They were great horses. Duncan could ride any of them with complete aplomb. Incredible.
Actually, we're going to put some pictures up, right?
Sure.
Of Duncan and the horse. And
Right. But they had a horse that would jump anything. Then they had a horse that would rear up. Then they had a horse that would speed off with, in the dust trail. And then a horse that would stand still for dialogue scenes. And Duncan was the master of all of them. And I was terrified of all of them. But we actually had, I think, both you and our son on the horse at one time. But you remember how hot he was in that heat?
Who, the horse?
The horse, yeah. They had
what do you mean how hot he was?
Because he was black, jet black horse standing out in that sun. They erected these huge umbrellas for him.
Well, he had a saddle on, though.
Yeah, but they tried to keep him in the shade as much as possible. It was tricky.
Right.
A lot of tricky stuff.
Tricky, yes, Bob. You're not great on horses.
No,
that's okay though. No problem. So directing you enjoyed. You loved to produce the show, and you wrote for the show.
It was tricky. It was different because the crew were French, English, and Americans, and Spanish. So we had 4 different cultures on the set, several of whom couldn't actually understand each other's language. So there was a lot of hand communication, a lot of sign language, a lot of hysterical laughs when misunderstandings occurred. We had to be very careful in certain sequences because we had Duncan Regehr jumping from rooftop to horse, things like that. So the coordination of communication was always a challenge among the crew, but a lot of very good-natured guys, that much I'll say.
So overall, your experience on Zorro was good.
It was awesome. It's probably one of the best series I've ever worked on because everybody was working towards something very positive. Everybody loved being in Spain.
We sure drank a lot of wine.
We drank a lot of sangria, right?
It was great.
It was.
And you remember the nice getaway vacation on
Yes, we went to
the ocean?
We went to Marbella and stayed at the Hotel Bobadilla, which must have been built by some Arabian prince or something.
It was fabulous.
Well, as I may have mentioned in the episode 4, it was the largest swimming pool I've ever seen. It was a 2-acre swimming pool.
I remember all you guys were wearing your Speedos. That was in.
Well, we were very Euro,
Yes.
And I recall going to the beach at Marbella and discovering that it cost $25 to get a beach towel.
I have a great picture of you.
In my Speedo?
In your Speedo.
That will not be on the website.
On your Speedo. Oh, this was priceless. You were on the Chase Lounge pretending to read, but your face was looking to the right, staring at the lady next to you who was topless.
Oh, well.
Kind of caught.
I'm just a guy. What can I say?
It's a great picture.
Just a guy. Hey, I do want to remind everybody, go to the website, wherehollywoodhides.com, and you'll see opportunities to shop for the entire series of Zorro in a box set. They put out a spectacular and elegant box set of every single episode. You'll find lots of memorabilia and Zorro references on there, as well as a couple of video clips that I'll put up.
I do remember the people who lived in Spain were fabulous. They're very welcoming, and they sincerely acted like they liked Americans, so that was nice.
Yeah.
It was a great trip for the family as well, except that we spent all our money.
Well, it's
all the money you've made.
Europe is an expensive vacation.
I remember we came home and the money was gone. I mean, the money that you made.
Right. We traveled. We saw some things. It was an adventure. It was a family adventure. It was terrific. And I must say, you worked very hard keeping two young boys actively engaged and acculturated. And you went to the Prado Museum with them.
We went to a lot of places.
Right. You learned a little bit about...
And we walked.
Right, learned a lot about art.
Walked a lot, learned about art, and we also learned that the cab drivers didn't take any baths. I remember...
Now, wait a minute. We have European listeners here, okay?
I know,
Be careful.
I know. But we have to understand...
This podcast goes to about 30 countries now.
Right.
And I do want to mention how much we appreciate all the new listeners we're getting from countries all over the world. Our listenership has gone up. It's doubling almost every month. As a matter of fact, last month of December, we broke November's record. So it's all very encouraging. We know people are out there listening, and they're checking us out on the website as well.
Anyway, I think that particular trip prepared us for our trip to New Zealand. Which came right after.
Right, shortly thereafter.
And instead of 3 months, it turned out to be almost a year in New Zealand. So that was... we also took the family to that, and we will be talking about that.
Right.
So now that the holidays are over, I can tell you that I really enjoyed shopping on Amazon.com. So it's just a reminder to our growing audience of listeners, be sure to check out our website at wherehollywoodhides.com for show notes, photos, and the latest in showbiz news. And please click on the Amazon banners to take you directly to the world's biggest online shopping mall. I think I bought maybe 80% of our Christmas gifts online. It was great. They delivered it exactly when they said they would deliver it.
And you bought some unusual stuff.
So whatever you're looking for, just remember, from books, movies, to pet supplies, it's at Amazon.com. And the links at wherehollywoodhides.com is probably the quickest way to do your shopping. And we will really appreciate go through our website.
So thanks for joining us for this podcast. Next time we'll be talking about high tide and our adventures in New Zealand. I want to remind you, our bumper music this week is provided by Chance McCullough. You can find him at chancemccullough.com. This is Bob McCullough.
And this is Suzanne Herrera McCullough.
And we will see you next time.
Adios.
Where Hollywood Hides is a website that has all the star news. All of the stars like Audrey Hepburn and Katy Perry and more. So please visit our page at wherehollywoodhides.com.